Marcus Mariota and Terry McLaurin hooked up for a deep shot at OTA practice number 2, but it was rookie quarterback Jayden Daniels with the dime of the day, connecting with Jahan Dotson. That and more OTA practice number 2 observations coming up on this episode of Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This is your daily podcast covering the Washington Commanders, and I am your host, David Harrison, credentialed member of the media covering the Washington Commanders for CommanderGameDay.com. And I'm here with you every Monday through Friday, and I greatly appreciate you coming through for today's episode. Everydayers, welcome back, and I appreciate your continued support for the program. On today's episode, we're talking about practice, OTA number 2, at least for the media. It's definitely OTA number something more than that for the Washington Commanders, but our second look at OTA practices for the Washington Commanders, and we're going to start off that conversation with the quarterbacks, most important position on the field. Marcus Mariota and Jayden Daniels, to be exact, will be the focus of that conversation. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. If you want to discuss this episode, anything else Washington Commanders related, or if you've got questions that you need answered, you can text me directly by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. Become an insider today, and from there you will get text message delivered directly from me to you, to your phone. No hashtags, no apps, no filters, none of that, just direct conversations between me and you that go beyond the show here. So again, join subtext.com/LockedOnCommanders to become an insider today. We got another new David into the insider group. We got a few Davids coming in there. I'm pretty partial to the name. You can call me biased. That's okay. I will accept the biasness there, but always good to have new insiders, no matter what your name is. So come through, say hi, and join the group. OTA practice number 2. We are going to get in another OTA practice here in a couple of weeks. June 5th is the scheduled date. Of course, that is always tentative and could always change, but that should be our final OTA practice. And then we will get a mini camp June 11th through the 13th. We are supposed to get all 3 days. Now, of course, there is a little bit of a tradition in the NFL for coaches to reward players for good practices and good offseason programs, give them that last day off, or maybe just do a walkthrough that's closed to the media, then let them kind of have that early start to the long break before training camp. So we've got 3, maybe 4 practices coming in before we hit the dreaded dead period, and we really hit the long stride of speculation season. We're already in speculation season, but that's when we really hit the speculation season. So we're going to take advantage of all these practices as much as we can, while we can. And today we're going to start our second OTA practice observations with the quarterbacks. A little bit different this time than the first time around. The first time around, you might remember, they actually ran 2 sets of 7-on-7. So you would have Marcus Mariota on the field and Jayden Daniels. Then you would have Sam Hartman and Jeff Driscoll on the same field at the same time running their units, all 4 quarterbacks getting a good amount of 7-on-7 reps. Not sure how long they continued to do that after we got to see that done, but on Wednesday, that's not how they did it. They did 1 unit at a time, and really it was just the first 2 units. It was Marcus Mariota and Jayden Daniels getting the reps. They did a little bit of short field work. They did a little bit of long field work, some time stuff, some situational stuff. It was a lot of fun to watch, as always, which is why you get into this business. If you don't love watching football, don't get into this business, I'll tell you that. But starting with Marcus Mariota, very early on in the process, had a very, very good pass connection to Terry McLaurin. Very good pass, very good ball, very good catch by Terry. Really love to see that connection between the 2 veterans. But it was Jayden Daniels, the rookie quarterback, that had the dime of the day. So the pass from Marcus Mariota to Terry McLaurin was on the left side of the field. Hopefully the social team got that on camera for you guys, because you're going to love seeing that. I think it was Benjamin St-Juste in coverage on that one. It was pretty decent coverage, just a better ball and a better route run by the veteran Terry McLaurin. That was on the far side of the field. Jayden Daniels, Jahan Dotson was on the near side of the field. In fact, it was actually kind of right in front of me. I was standing with another media member. There is a team camera. They've got a clip of that pass, of the pass and the catch going around on social media. So definitely make sure you go check that out, because it is a beaut. It was a great ball, great placement, great touch. Jahan Dotson, fingertip catch, brought it in, got both feet down. Michael Davis was in coverage, and I will tell you, he was in good coverage, man. Like, that was good coverage by him. It was just a better ball. It was just better execution by the offense, and you'll love to see it, all around. Again, good coverage, good routes, good ball, good catch. I mean, everybody did a good job, but that's what happens when if the offense executes, and that's what offensive coordinators will tell you. If they execute the best of their ability, there's nothing defense can do. And on that situation, nothing Michael Davis can do, really nothing Benjamin St-Juste could do on the other side either. But the defense got back a little bit. They got a little bit of their own revenge there, some short field work. You're talking 8-yard line going in, and in 7-on-7s here, it's all passing, right? And that's what Dan Quinn has kind of talked about several times. It's a passing camp. That's what OTAs are. They're passing camps. You're not doing any running because there's no live blocking. There's no hitting. So, I mean, you can hand the ball off to Brian Robinson. He's going to run through the A gap, the B gap, the C gap, whatever gap. It's going to be open because it has to be open. He's going to break it because he has to break it, right? So you could do it, and certainly they work on some blocking fundamentals and all that stuff. But really, the crux of this is really through the pass. So short field, no threat of the run. That the pass is coming, all those things. So the defense definitely got back a little bit and got some revenge, some interceptions. Caillou Blue Kelly actually had a really good play. We got a really good break on the ball from Jayden Daniels. Brought in the catch. The ref on the sideline said that unfortunately he only got the 1 foot in, so didn't get 2 feet in. So unfortunately for Caillou, it didn't count, but still a really good play. There were a couple of tip passes that got intercepted. Again, things that happen in the short area of the field. Nothing to worry about because at the end of the day, you want to see these quarterbacks put the ball in play. You want to see the players try to make a play on the ball. That's exactly what you want to see in these drills. Good stuff from the quarterbacks. Good moments for the defense too. De'Ami Brown was the receiver of the day, probably overall. Last OTA practice was Luke McCaffrey. Really came out there, made his mark, really stood out. Today was De'Ami Brown. Had a really good couple of reps, made some really good catches. Had one pass specifically that he was going up against Emmanuel Forbes. Coverage was good. To start with, De'Ami Brown's second effort, scramble drill, made a really good move, left Emmanuel Forbes kind of standing by himself, got behind him for a touchdown catch. Now, it's one of those plays that if you've been to training camp or if you've just seen football practices, 7-on-7s, you've seen it. The play kind of extends. So if there's full pass rushes and all that stuff, the play's probably not going to last as long as it did. And that's okay, but you still like to see the second effort from De'Ami. You still like to see him running, getting open for his quarterback. Emmanuel, sure, you can say that you would love to see him stay with them. But again, if you that's where you kind of take the grain of salt with it, right? Like you can't expect Emmanuel Forbes to stay in coverage for like 10 seconds. But that was just one play. De'Ami Brown had a couple of other good plays too. So good to see that number 2 putting in some good work. If I had to critique Jayden Daniels from OTA practice number 2, I'd say maybe he can lead his receivers a little bit more, especially during kind of the scramble drill, especially when he starts moving left to right and all that stuff. He gets his receivers going, maybe put the ball out just a little bit more. There were a couple that were a little bit more inside. Defenders got their hands on him. A couple got deflected up in the air. Certainly could have been dangerous. So you'd like to see him maybe work on that ball placement a little bit more when he's moving left to right. Marcus Mariota, it's not a critique, but I personally just hate seeing quarterbacks take off and run in 7-on-7s. Extend the play, man. Let it go. Let it run. Let your receivers move around the field. Get a ball out. Get a catch. It's almost like just seeing a ball go through the net, right? Let's see the ball land in the receiver's hands. Everybody knows you're not getting rushed, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, not really looking to see if Marcus Mariota is making the right decisions. There was actually one play where Jayden Daniels threw the ball out of bounds. It was very close to the sideline, really wasn't in a place where his receiver could make a great play on it, but the only person that could make a play on it was his receiver. The coaches got very excited. We're telling him good decision, good throw, good placement. That's exactly what you do in that situation. So again, for a young guy, you like seeing that. Marcus Mariota, we know that you know how to make smart decisions if you absolutely have to. So I would rather see you throw the ball out there. Again, that's a nitpicky criticism. It's not even a criticism. It's like a critique, but just because we're looking for those. At the end of the day, I want to see Jayden Daniels throwing the ball in these drills, not tucking or running. That's exactly what we saw, which, some people out there might be surprised to hear that you don't see Jayden Daniels running around the field a whole lot, at least not north and south in these OTA practices. Marcus Mariota also told us after practice that Jayden has a really good command of the offense up to this point, and he's really showing that to the veterans, which he feels is really important for a young quarterback to be able to do in order to earn the respect of his teammates. So he's doing a lot about that. Also talked a lot about checking his own ego. Marcus himself said that's something he learned to do in Tennessee, something that he's certainly doing here. So no matter who starts week 1, which we all pretty much assume, right, it's going to be Jayden, but no matter who starts week 1, Marcus is just focused on being the best he can, helping Jayden as much as he can, helping himself as much as he can, and just being a good part of the team nucleus. Exactly what you want to hear out of a veteran, what you expect to be backup quarterback. Exactly the same kind of stuff that we heard from Jacoby Brissett last year that made us all really enjoy covering him for the season that we got to. So Good stuff from the quarterbacks. The defense got a little bit of their own, certainly at the second OTA practice open to the media. But let's move into some of the other categories. Let's talk about where some of these guys are going to line up with which units. How much can we really take away from it right now? And we'll also talk about some interesting new kickoff rule wrinkles that we saw at practice. Coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On Commanders brought to you by Yahoo Finance. Wouldn't it be great if you could see all your investments and retirement accounts in one place? With Yahoo Finance, you can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access the expert analysis you need to tend to your entire portfolio with confidence. When it comes to your financial future, you think you've done it all. You've saved, you've researched, you've invested all that you can. Now you need to take those investments to the next level by using what every financial great uses, Yahoo Finance. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401k and other investments. A comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors, and is how Yahoo Finance ensures you have the insight to look at your wealth in its entirety. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com. The number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. Thanks again for making Locked On Commanders your first listener, your first view today and every day. Every day, thanks for coming through. Come back tomorrow. We'll have more conversation about the Washington Commanders. We got some press boxes, some press conferences, some scrums to go through, some transcripts to read through and pull out some important information from. We will do that tomorrow on our next episode. In the meantime, make the switch over to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming that some of the other major networks bring you. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, one-on-one conversations, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Everybody loves talking about who is playing with what squads at this time of year. So I'm going to do a little bit of a public service announcement here. Hopefully you're not someone who needs it necessarily, but if you do need it, then it's important to kind of understand that everything that you're seeing, everything that you're hearing, everything you're being told should have a gigantic grain of salt being carried with it, meaning that don't get too wrapped up into who's playing with who, who's playing next to who, who's playing across from who at this time of year, because it can certainly all change. And this team, these coaches have already basically said they're trying combinations. They want to see what this guy looks like here, see what this guy looks like next to this guy, all these kinds of different things. So while it's certainly interesting, don't get too bogged down thinking of like, well, this guy is QB2 right now or QB1. This guy's, Bryson Tremaine was running routes with Marcus Mariota. Maybe he's going to make the roster. And I'm not saying that Bryson can't make the roster. I'm just saying don't get too crazy if you hear some of these things. However, that being said, everybody is interested in it. We're interested in it. We watch it as well. And I think it's just part of the human nature, the curiosity, especially with a team with this much turnover. You want to see how things are starting to come together. So we did make some notes of some things that happened on practice or at practice on OTA day number 2 for the media. We'll start with the offensive line and offensive tackle, rookie offensive tackle, Brandon Coleman. So again, things are working consistently, right? Linebackers, D-line, secondary, receivers, quarterbacks, running backs, offensive line. Everybody's working at the exact same time. So I can't see everything. So again, if you hear a comment from somebody else, by all means, share it with me. But just don't expect me to have 9 sets of eyes watching 9 different groups of people practicing, please. Brandon Coleman, what I saw him working on when I watched the offensive line, they were working on tight end combo block. So tight end combo block, you have a tight end lined up in line, which means he's hand in the dirt, 3-point stance next to the left tackle or the right tackle. They can be offset, they can be lined up. It just depends on the overall formation. But either way, you've got a tight end lined up directly snug on the hip of the offensive tackle, either the left side or the right side, right? So I loved watching it. I thought it was very interesting. I like watching that kind of stuff anyway. So I was watching them, and what I noticed is that with Andrew Wiley on the right side, Zach Ertz was his combo block partner, tight end. So obviously starter with starter. And then when Brandon Coleman was on the left side of the line doing these drills, it was John Bates lined up next to him as an inline tight end doing these combo block drills. Now, to me, John Bates is tight end number 2 behind Zach Ertz. Right now, I've got Zach Ertz, John Bates. Ben Sinnott, Cole Turner, Armani Rogers. That's the depth chart, quote unquote. There is no depth chart, so, take it loosely as far as I see it. So to me, this stands out because, looks like Brandon Coleman is getting essentially starter reps because, again, the second tight end is over there with the second tackle, which is the left tackle, which is the first left tackle, right? Continuing to watch it, Cornelius Lucas was doing his reps with Cole Turner. Trent Scott was doing his with Armani Rogers. So it kind of seems to fit my pecking order of tight ends. If that matches the tackles, then that would tell you that Brandon Coleman may be the number one left tackle at this time for the Washington Commanders coaching staff. However, again, I don't get to see everything. Fortunately, I get to talk to some people. And another media member told me they saw Brandon Coleman doing left side line drills, right, where it's just the left side of the line or it's the interior line, however it is. But when they were doing line drills, he was partnered with Michael Dieter, who most people expect to be a backup offensive line on this roster. Nick Allegretti is expected to be the starting left guard. When Nick Allegretti was doing these line drill combos, he was doing them next to Cornelius Lucas. So what do you take away from that? Well, it's just information at this point in time. Brandon Coleman is getting some reps out there. Cornelius Lucas is getting some reps out there. I wouldn't take any of it too far, but it is interesting information. I thought it was fun to watch and so fun to share. Maybe Michael Dieter is getting some burn, maybe getting some opportunity, maybe earn that left guard spot. I mean, Nick Allegretti, when he came in, remember, he himself even talked about he wasn't coming here promised a starting job. He was coming here with the opportunity to fight for a starting job. So I don't know, maybe this coaching staff thinks Michael Dieter is a starting left guard right now. Maybe that's what we want to read into it. Again, I would not recommend reading too much into any of it, but I know it's something that a lot of people are curious about. So I made a note of it, mental note, went ahead and decided to share that with you guys. Now, the drills seem to go pretty well. The person who told me that they saw Brandon Coleman working with Michael Dieter said they did pretty well. They looked pretty fluid, looked pretty confident. The combo blocks that I was watching, the tight ends, all the units looked pretty good, looked pretty confident. So, for what it's worth, that's going pretty well. It's other offensive linemen holding pads. It's not defensive linemen trying to rush or anything like that yet. So, again, grain of salt period, right? Also, Brian Robinson continues to look like the top back ahead of Austin Eckler. When the drills are getting started, it's B-Rob working with Marcus Mariota. It's B-Rob, the first running back in line, all that stuff. So it's looking to me like Brian Robinson's your number one back. Austin Eckler's listed on some depth chart websites as the number one back. I think that's more of a reputation, veteran nod type of thing. I think B-Rob is your top running back. We'll see how that continues to develop. In the secondary, Quan Martin was basically your exclusive first-team free safety, along with Jeremy Chin. At strong safety, Derek Forrest was basically running with the second team all throughout practice, which surprised me and a few other people that were observing a little bit. Not that we don't think Quan Martin has, potential and all that stuff. We just expected there to be at least a little bit more rotation. There was some rotation later on in the 7-on-7s, but when it came to kind of unit on unit and unit drills, especially with the entire defense out there, it was mostly Quan Martin in there with the first team guys. So maybe, again, I think they're just testing it out. I wouldn't go running around saying Quan Martin is the starting free safety at this point, but certainly something to keep an eye on. And then Emmanuel Forbes, maybe the demise of Emmanuel Forbes coming a little bit early. He was definitely out there with the first team defense opposite Benjamin St-Juste, on the field with Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, all those guys. Michael Davis certainly got his work in there as well. So I think that's certainly going to be a training camp battle that we're going to need to keep an eye on. Also got to see some linebacker work today for the first time in kind of a unit formation and a full defense formation. Again, no pads, no hitting, but the group does look fast. They look in sync. They look fluid. Bobby Wagner stood out, obviously, Frankie Louvu, but also Jordan McGee, the rookie out of Temple. We were talking a little bit on the sideline. Don't be surprised, guys, if maybe Jordan McGee starts challenging for some of Jamin Davis's playing time. Not going to predict it just yet, but young man looks pretty good for what he's doing right now. And again, that's only very little, but it's still something, right? Wrapping it up with a new wrinkle that we saw at Commanders practice on Wednesday that I found interesting about the new kickoff rules. Hopefully you're going to find it interesting too. That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Commanders brought to you by Game Time. And Game Time knows that finding tickets sometimes can be incredibly frustrating. And if you've never been to the venue, buying tickets can be sometimes a little bit scary. You don't know where the best seats are, where the good views are. Game Time helps you out by giving you views from the section, sometimes the exact same row that you're going to be sitting in. We don't know right now Jayden Daniels is going to be a Hall of Famer. We don't know right now Jayden Daniels is going to be one of the all-time great quarterbacks in NFL history. Maybe he's going to be a franchise quarterback here in Washington. But if he is, there's only going to be one home opener he's ever going to start in. That's probably going to be week 2 against the New York Giants. Do you want to be there? to see the beginning of that journey. I know I would. If you want to, you can do it with more confidence over at Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create your account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Commanders, OTA practice number 2 for the media. Notes and observations. And the practice today started with special teams. And I'm not going to lie to you, my initial reaction when practices start with special teams is, okay, I got time to go to the bathroom. I got time to go get a drink. I got time to whatever, not an alcoholic beverage, but like water if I need to. I got time. But today was a little bit different because special teams is a little bit different. The kickoff rules have changed. If you don't remember, the kickoff rules have changed. Now where players are aligned is kind of set up, right? Like it was, because I was kind of weary about it. I was like, can I record what's going on? Because these are formations. Typically they don't like you to record formations, but I'm like, this is a special teams formation. But because of the new rules, I think everybody kind of has to line up in the same place, right? So it's just a little bit interesting. So we're allowed to kind of observe, record it, things like that. So you might see some tweets going on around about it. But what's most interesting is now neither the front blocking unit or the defense, the coverage unit, right, the return team, the coverage team, nobody can move until somebody fields the ball, until the ball has been touched. So that's number one, kind of stands out, obviously, when you're watching, especially in person. And I know it came from other leagues and all that stuff, but seeing in person is just completely different. But then number two, what's interesting is touchbacks now come out to the 30, which makes them a little bit more prohibitive. So teams in the past were like, okay, we'll just boot it out the end zone. It doesn't matter. But now the NFL is basically incentivized through punishing. If you kick it out the back of the end zone, you're giving your opponent the ball at the 30-yard line. You're giving them, close to 33% of the yardage they need to gain against you to score a touchdown for free. So I think you're going to see a little bit more kicking into the play, to the game, the field of play, maybe a little bit more like 2 yards into the end zone. Like there's going to be this like soft spot. There's going to be this sweet spot, right? Like 2 yards deep, 4 yards deep. I don't think 5 yards deep. I think 5 yards deep, you're going to see knees and you're giving them the ball at the 30. But 2 yards deep, maybe you make them return. And now you got to get a 32-yard return to match the touchback yardage, right? But what was really interesting was the way the Washington Commanders were doing this. They had 2 guys in the back getting ready to field it. And whoever fielded it became obviously the returner. The other guy basically became a lead blocker. And it was just interesting. Some of the combinations. One of the most interesting combinations involved Brian Robinson being back to field the kickoff. And he fielded the kickoff. And I got to tell you guys, watching Brian Robinson get that running head start against a coverage team that just started running as soon as he touched the ball. If you're a safety or a DB, just in general, on that coverage team, and you see big old number 8 barreling down on you, I don't know, man, you might make a business decision or two. Like there's some linebackers out there, sure. But if you're like a safety who's kind of on the fringe, like you're kind of a small guy, not totally big, you might think a time or two. So that was really interesting. And again, they rotated a lot of guys through there fielding these kickoffs. So I wouldn't put any money in stock into any of these guys. I'm not sitting here telling you like Brian Robinson is going to be the kickoff returner, but I just thought it was very interesting to see him back there doing that and kind of running with these tandems. Another one that was interesting for the opposite reason was Emmanuel Forbes. And we know Emmanuel Forbes is doing some punt return, fielding responsibilities in the first practice that we got to see. We was also back there fielding kickoffs. That's terrifying, to be quite honest with you. I do not want to see Emmanuel Forbes running into a field of kick return coverage team players ever again. That was not fun. And to be quite honest with you, it didn't look like he was really enjoying it either. He got kind of tentative. And again, we're in a portion of the offseason where they can't hit you, they can't tackle you. And he's still tentative when he comes up to the scrum, basically the group of defenders, still hesitant. You know what I mean? So if you're going to be hesitant when you know they can't hit you, what are you going to do when they can hit you? So I don't know if I want to see Emmanuel Forbes doing that ever again. Hopefully the coaches saw what I saw and they agree. But it was very interesting. So the kickoff rules and the way the kickoffs work this year are going to be something to watch. They're going to be a storyline. And I'll tell you what, man, I think that if you get teams that know how to block this thing up, there's going to be some big returns. Like the kickoff, I think the kickoff game is going to become an influential part of this game again, very, very quickly. So we'll see. We'll see what it looks like. I'm actually kind of curious, does Madden putting it in the Madden football game? Because that could be interesting as well for those of us who are nerds like that. So we're going to wrap up our initial reactions and notes from OTA number 2 for the meet. It was a fun day. It was a hot day. I don't know if you could tell, but I definitely got some sun. I don't really ever sunburn. I just get color. So I'm looking forward to getting some of my color back after winter and all that stuff. But coming up tomorrow, we will have more conversation. We'll dive into some of the quotes, some of the interviews that we had with players after practice. Dan Quinn before practice. We'll talk about some of the key points from those conversations and pull what we can out of those. In the meantime, if you got questions or comments, throw them down in the YouTube comment section. Text me directly by becoming a Locked On Commanders insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders and come say hi today. Don't forget to check out Locked On Sports Today, the first ever 24/7 live streaming sports channel on YouTube. As always, thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day, every day. Thanks for coming through on a consistent basis like you do. And until we speak again, if you're out and about, please be safe, be kind, and I'll see you next time right back here for another episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.